And as the Clatsop County Local Contract Review Board is now meeting in regular session, will you please join me in the flag? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Can we have the roll call, please?
Commissioner Miller.
Here.
Commissioner Clement.
Here.
Commissioner Lee.
Here.
Commissioner Sullivan.
Here.
Commissioner Thompson.
Here.
Okay, before we look for a approval of the agenda, I would like to add an item. I would like the board to review a letter that I would like to present for deliberation. I would like to send to the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, and I would like to add this as agenda item 7C. So I would look for a motion to approve the amended agenda.
So
by
moved.
adding 7C.
Sorry, I'm ahead of
letter
you.
to the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife.
Second.
We got a motion from Thompson, okay. And a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The agenda is approved. We have a presentation tonight. Dr. Duncan, welcome. Come on up, and glad you could make it, and we're looking forward to Clatsop County Public Health Update.
Okay.
For some reason my screen's not working here.
Mine either. Maybe we have to turn them on.
Okay.
What happened to you last time, too?
We got no signal.
Uh-oh, we're having technical difficulty.
I'll just share, Commissioner. I'll just read off the paper, which I prefer anyways.
Oh, I do too.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. This is Mike McNichol. I'm the Director of Public Health. If you introduce yourself. Thomas Duncan.
Oh, yeah, I'm Tom Duncan, 511 Jerome, Astoria, and I'm the Director of Public Health. Or actually, the Public Health Officer. You're the Director.
Close enough. Yeah. So tonight we wanted to give a brief introduction to public health and what we're doing because it is a new year. We have a new commissioner, and we also want to introduce Dr. Duncan as our health officer because a lot of folks don't know that he is a health officer or even had one. So this is our opportunity to kind of let him talk to you guys and discuss his passion that he has for public health. And actually then after he's done, I'm going to go into a couple of these topics that you have on your screens. The role of the local board of health, as you may or may not know, the Board of Commissioners is also the local board of health. The role of the health officer, the role of the administrator, which is me, some of the state required services, and then I want to talk about a recent example of a disease control effort that we're undergoing, and then we're going to try to answer the question of what if there was no public health? What would that mean? And then I'll answer your questions if you have any. So without further ado, I'll introduce Dr. Duncan. He's a health officer and has been in us for 28 years. I do believe this is his first appearance in front of the board. Yes. And he also is in private practice. He also some other local activities as he also works with the jail. And and I don't know if you noticed in the Daily Historian a few weeks ago, he actually had a story about him at my request. And it was a great quote. I thought he said, the main reason a population has good health or bad health is public health.
Okay, well, thanks, Steve. I guess this thing's pretty sensitive, isn't it? Where's the sweet spot? Right there? But it doesn't pick it up. Does it pick it up now?
That's
It's
real good.
It's
About
real
six-
directional.
About 6 inches.
Okay, well, anyway, this is a very curious event for me. I'm now in my 30th year as Clatsop County Health Officer, but this is the first time that I've been before the Board of Commissioners in that capacity. I want to start by thanking all of you for...
Let's Keep it a little further away.
effort and the sacrifice that you make in helping to keep
You're too magnetic, Tom.
too magnetic, yes. Wait a minute now.
Yeah, push it about 6, 10 inches out forward. We'll
It
hear you.
doesn't seem like it's picking anything up there.
Yeah, it is. It's fine.
Yes.
No, you?
No, you
Okay.
can't hear yourself.
I can't hear myself.
That's good right there.
That's good. All right, anyway. So I was thanking you, but here it rings at me. For your efforts and your sacrifice in keeping American democracy alive, I believe that not only do you know what it takes to make America great, but that you have a pretty good idea what it takes to keep it that way. There is no need to make America great again. We are a great nation. Our job, handed down by our forefathers and foremothers, is to keep the best of what they gave to us, to polish and maintain it and to improve it where possible, and to hand it to our children and grandchildren in better condition than we received it. This evening I'm taking off my private health hat, where I spend most of my time and where most of you know me, and address you as your public health officer, a role which I wager most of the people in the country don't even know exists, but which is crucial to effective governance of our country and our county. I don't mean to suggest that I'm personally crucial to effective governance, but I am here to say that public health is the bedrock of civilization. It does not matter how clever we are at cleaning out clogged coronary arteries in individual members of our society if the society as a whole isn't properly fed, housed, protected from violence. No advanced society can survive without clean air, clean water, control of epidemic disease, protection from random or organized violence, and an adequate and safe food supply. Furthermore, most of you will probably agree with me that these protective functions do not inhere in individual efforts by private citizens, nor in giant corporations, but are the function of a government, however that government is constituted. It doesn't matter whether the government is a democracy, a fascist dictatorship, a communist dictatorship, or a medieval Confucian government. It is not biologically possible to crowd 1,000 people together in a temporary camp, let alone in a city of 100,000 or 1 million people, or a great nation of 300 million people, without attention to those basic needs of the population. I want to thank you for inviting Mike McNichol and me, and to remind you a little bit of one of your most important, yet perhaps the most taken for granted functions as County Commissioner, and that is your role as Board of Health, charged with maintaining public health and invested with significant legal authority to make that happen. I say taken for granted because when everything is going smoothly, public health just seems natural and it looks like it runs itself. It absolutely does not. Fortunately, we are currently quite organized and cooperative here in Clatsop County, major controversies notwithstanding. And our respective roles of Board of Health and Public Health Officer are largely ceremonial, just because of the effectiveness of our county health department and the state and federal and public health agencies that support it. But this evening we get a few minutes to show you that we are really here and that what we do really matters. A couple of examples of practical public health. Every newly graduated primary school teacher quickly learns about epidemic disease in a very personal sort of way. Virtually every new teacher has a constant cold, or worse, every year for the first several years they teach, and then with the passing of years they seem to develop immunity to most of the respiratory viruses that the kids bring in. Nowadays, it's just colds, but it used to be diphtheria, measles, strep infections, whooping cough, and worse. Similarly, anyone who's been on a Boy Scout jamboree for a week with 50 boys in a primitive camp very quickly develops a sense of the importance of organized efforts to maintain sanitation. For sure, sanitary arrangements do not organize themselves, not in Boy Scout camp nor anywhere else. Multiply these situations by 100,000 or 1 million, and you will have some idea of the challenges facing officials trying to keep their city and county safe and clean. Control of epidemic disease, and sanitation are only two of the many functions of public health. But when those two break down, civilization is no longer possible. Far more people who die as a result of warfare die of epidemic disease than of enemy or friendly fire. I'm going to show one slide here to make my point and then turn it over to the Health Department Director, Mike McNichols. If you can take a look at that slide, it might be on your screens, I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
But if we unpack this summary slide, there are just a lot of points to make. If you look on the left-hand side, 1900, is there a pointer? This thing, does the mouse work on this thing?
Gone. Oh, no.
Here's the mouse. Where do you want it pointed?
Well, here, okay, there you go. In 1900, about 500, a little over 500, this is deaths per 100,000. These would be approximately 500 per 100,000 deaths per 100,000 population. Pneumonia or influenza, tuberculosis, and gastrointestinal infections. You can see that those are all basically infectious epidemic diseases. You can also see that the death rate has been cut almost in half, from something over 1,100 per 100,000 to just over 550,000 now, or 550 per 100,000 now. It's true that we all die, so that eventually the death rate is 100%, but we don't all have to die prematurely, and that's what's going on here. This is a graph to show that the premature death rate has declined dramatically. And almost all that gain has been in the control of epidemic disease, that is public health. There's been some improvement in death rate from heart disease and cerebrovascular disease. There's heart disease right there, 134 out of 100,000. Here's heart disease over here.
Look down, Tom.
Heart disease,
So no improvement.
193. So it's gone from 137 to 193. The death rate has actually gone up for heart disease. Cancer has gone way up. Cerebrovascular disease, 106. Cerebrovascular disease here was
41.42.
40.
42.
It's gone down some. So there's been some improvement in heart disease and cerebrovascular disease. Well, actually, heart disease has gone up, but that's, again, a function of the aging population. So cancer's gone way up. Heart disease has gone up a little. We've made some strides in cerebrovascular disease. Although the slide doesn't explicitly make the point, most of that gain has been in the public health sector, which is in efforts to prevent disease, rather than treat established problems. In heart disease and cerebrovascular disease, it's mostly the control of cholesterol and other harmful things in the diet and hypertension. In cancer, mostly you see the effect of the aging population as the young people no longer die so much of infectious disease. The population has aged considerably and degenerative diseases have become a real problem. Accidents is another one that there's been some improvement in. That is basically the result of public health efforts in highway safety, workplace safety, and that sort of thing. Only in the last few years has private health made any large-scale effort to become involved in the prevention of disease, and those efforts are still quite rudimentary and unorganized. The CCO, which some of you know about, is all about preventive disease and about linking dental, mental health, and physical health in a overarching combination. combination, but it hasn't really worked out very well yet. The death rate from cancer is now much greater than 1900, reflecting the fact that as control of mortality in the younger population is achieved, more of us will live to advanced age to be subject to cancer, which is almost certainly an inevitable accompaniment of an aging immune system. There's probably no real way to stop that. Great advances have been made in oncology, but the major problem and the major possibilities are still in the prevention and in the public health efforts to prevent to prevent lung cancer, environmentally caused cancers, all those things that's still the low-hanging fruit. Oncology is very expensive, and it provides a few years of advanced life, but it's not the main. People still die of cancer. In summary, most of the improvement in the health of our young, vital population is a result of efforts of public health, while improvements in private health are real, in some cases are dramatic. They are occurring in an aging population, which we older folks can attest no longer really contribute much to the vitality and the greatness of America. Beyond 70, we aren't really doing a lot of work. We are approaching a receding horizon here, where we are spending ever more of our resources on personal health to increasingly less effect. And yet, while we risk bankrupting our economy in personal health expenditures, public health remains an economic bargain, and that's why I call it the cornerstone of civilization. Sorry about all that ringing. I don't know what to do about that. Any questions?
No, but thank you for that presentation.
Amazing.
Great.
I have a question, of course.
Comments?
So,
it is interesting that the board has shown any interest in public health. I'm glad you have. It's refreshing.
Mr. Chair, one of the joys of volunteering in the community is meeting wonderful people who are smart and add to the quality of life. So, Tom, thank you for that experience. So, CCOs, so you say there's systematic approach, right? Looking at physical health, mental health, and dental health?
Yeah, the CCO is the state version of the ACO, which is kind of the bedrock of the Obamacare plan. The idea of Obamacare was that by increasing preventive health measures, people could be kept out of the hospital and save a lot of money. And so the idea was that Obamacare would save enough money to pay for itself by combining dental health, mental health, and physical health, and trying to address problems at an earlier stage where they're less expensive, rather than trying to just be involved in salvage care. The problem, of course, is that the combination of those three is quite difficult, because they each have their own culture. It's hard to put dentists and doctors and mental health professionals in the same box. They see the world differently, and so it hasn't worked out as a combination as easily as they thought it was going to. And the other thing is that there are so many unmet health needs that there's still an awful lot of salvage work to do, even if the preventive health measures were effective. There's an awful lot of catch-up work to do. So that's kind of doomed the whole ACA business. It's struggling to prove itself to be true. And now, of course, there's every effort to overturn the whole thing. And of course, the other thing that's really wrong with ACA is that it still relies on multiple separate insurance companies, each of whom have their own way of doing things and don't cooperate with each other, don't share information, and certainly don't share money. So it's pretty hard to deal with a population when you have them all in little silos, separate from each other. So it probably is true that the ACA is doomed to failure. It made some good strides, but it isn't the thing that's going to actually work.
So how can we move forward as a policy-setting board to guide and support the efforts
Well,
that you all are making?
Yeah, I mean, here, we're talking personal opinion, but I think that the only way that you're really going to make any strong headway is to somehow get all these silos together. Now, most people think that that's something like a single-payer health plan. Single-payer because in the single-payer, everybody is treated equally. You don't have separate silos for the one group of people and another group of people with different problems having a different payment mechanism. So if you make gains in, say Blue Cross pays for preventive measurements, the way things are now, when people switch to HealthNet maybe reaps the benefits of the investment of Blue Cross, and so on down the line, so that insurance companies are less willing to pay upfront for preventive things because they don't know that they're going to actually wind up saving the money. The only way that would work is if there's some way of tracking that. And that's why people say single payer makes more sense. And it does, except that there are problems with single payer too, of course.
But we, as the governing board of the county and the local health board, what can we do? I mean, maybe you don't have an answer.
Local efforts at the public health department. You know, the other thing that's happening with ACA and CCO is that public health is basically being privatized. The pieces of public health that somebody can make money on, like administering vaccines, are being taken away from the public health department and parceled out to different organizations. The health department used to give most of the vaccinations, most of the flu shots. You know, that was all sort of public health stuff. Now it's sort of been privatized. There are other things that have been taken out of public health that used to be public health, like home health nursing. That's gone to public or to private organizations that now run the nursing division. So public health has been sort of stripped of those parts of public health that money can be made on. And it's been left with epidemic diseases and sanitation and things that are really expensive to do, but there isn't any money for. So as a specific thing, what can the Board of Commissioners do? Well, probably not, because you don't really produce much of the budget for the county health department. A lot of the county health money comes from outside the county. But at least be aware of it and support the health department when they need support, when they're being under attack.
Okay. Thank you.
At some point, I have a question, but I don't know if it's,
Go for it.
well, okay. On the graph,
Uh-huh.
so where it showed the great difference in cancer numbers, and you think that it has to do with an aging population. Do you have data to support that, or have cancers among younger people also?
Oh, there's lots of cancer among younger people. But as a percentage of the cancers, I mean, when young people get cancer, it's news. It's dramatic. It's very heartrending, and so you tend to think of that as being a real problem. Whereas older people, they're sort of expected to die of cancer if they don't die of something else. And there is no data behind this slide. I'm not specifically. There is data. The number of people who are dying of cancer is almost entirely the old population.
Oh, really? This data reflects, it's mostly all,
This data reflects the reality of cancer in the population. It doesn't address the the tragedy of cancer in younger people.
Is this our county, or is this
This is the
nationwide?
United States.
Oh,
This is a graph that came from the New England Journal of Medicine in 2012. And I don't actually even know where what the article that was attached to was. But this came out of, I think it was actually Kathleen's question. Quite a while ago when I was getting ready to do this thing. Kathleen said, or maybe it was,
I don't know.
I don't know, it was somebody who said, well, what are you going to say? What difference does it make if there's public health? What would happen if there wasn't any public health? So we tried to get this together and figure out, well, how are we going to answer that question? Because those of us who are in the business know that it's not very sexy, but it really is very important. And so we need to figure out some way of making this interesting to people. But yes, the cancer death, I don't know. I mean, there may be some slight increase in cancer deaths in kids from environmental things or whatever, but it isn't very much. It's still, kids get cancers that are genetic, like retinoblastoma and meningiomas and things. They get acute leukemias and lymphomas that are probably actually virally mediated. It's a different sort of cancer than you get from in older people. It's basically an immune dysfunction.
well, I know that there, according to Oregon State University, because they're doing a study, because the EPA doesn't have the funding to do this, that there's approximately 2,000 new substances that come online every year in this country that are not tested.
So there's no question that a certain amount of the cancer that we see is due to environmental factors that we are being prevented from. See, that's another thing. Public health gets into the political sphere because the CDC is largely prevented from studying these things, if not directly by legislation prohibiting it, at least by failure of funding of the studies. So there probably is a fair amount of environmentally caused cancer that we don't specifically know. You know, it wasn't until 1968 that it was agreed by the government that smoking caused cancer.
Right.
But they had suspicions, right?
They knew perfectly well. And what's more, the tobacco companies were able to shield that data and hide it perfectly legally.
May I make a comment? So I think one thing that's in my mind is, I went to the public health meeting, whenever that was, a week or so ago, is that public health affects everyone's health, even though in our society, different people have different access to health care and different access to the things that would help keep a person healthy. And so that in itself makes public health political, doesn't it?
Well, sure, and we know what's bad for people. I mean, we know that white bread and sugary drinks are bad for you, and they cause diabetes, and diabetes leads to inflammatory conditions that probably are related to cancer. But you can't say that. You can't go out and promote, the public health department can't go and campaign against Burger King or anything like that.
Well, I was sent an email I mentioned last about it's a bill that's coming up called Tobacco 21 to try to raise the age of who can purchase tobacco products. And I talked to Mike, and he thinks, or people that we were talking this string, was that probably is not going to come even in front of a vote. And that's something we all know. We would prefer children not to start smoking. And it would improve public health if we could do that. But how politically do we achieve that? And that part of that is what you're saying with public health, is to support public health, is to support improving public health.
I think we have to empower the public health department to be more political. And I don't know exactly how that would be, because public health depends on the government and Congress to fund it. So it's, you know, you can't bite the hand that feeds. So the public health department knows certain things that they can't really say, and at least they can't advocate for.
But we as a body, we could say, hey, let's not start smoking as children, and send that along and see what happens with it.
Yeah, I don't know. That public health is always edgy that way.
I did have a point about this chart. So this is measuring prevalence of disease, not incidence. So what you're seeing is like in 1900, pneumonia and influenza killed 200 for every 1,000 people, right?
100,000.
100,000 people. So the first three from the bottom up on 1900 basically disappear in 2010. So that's why, and really if you look at pneumonia, influenza, tuberculosis, and GI infections, and diphtheria, those are all for people between 0 and 25. If they're all dying early, they're not going to have the cancers because they didn't have time to die of cancer. So this is just showing that over time, that although cancer may have gone up, that's because these other things went down to almost 0. So the prevalence of disease and cancer is going to be higher because of the age of the population and the fact that it's more prevalent.
Right.
So we have more opportunity to get cancer if we live longer.
That's correct.
Exactly.
And heart disease.
Broken. I did. Sorry. So I just wanted to go over real quick because I know we're way over time. So as you know, as Dr. Duncan mentioned, you do have a role as the Board of Health. You can see here, I won't read these to you, but you're defined by statutes to be the Board of Commissioners as a Board of Health. You do have certain things you have to do, work with the local health administrator, develop public health policies and goals, adopt ordinance and rules necessary for us to function, adopt civil penalties for violations, make and review recommendations on the local public health modernization plan that Commissioner Sullivan attended the other day, monitor progress of local public health authority and meeting statewide and local public health goals. So you do have an oversight role as well as a governing role, and we really look to you as the Board of Health as we can work with you. I'll bring things you need your policy approval for, violations, those kind of things. The role of the public health officer, so they have to, what we have Dr. Duncan do is really be our oversight for standard operating procedures in our clinic. When we have things like outbreaks, we work with him to help us do us the best plan to move forward. That's really the role of him. Is more of an oversight and making sure that we're doing everything correctly. He has to be certified as a doctor. He can't be a non-doctor. I have 2 years of experience, and he's got plenty of that. And they should be able to do everything under the public health rules. So my job is to actually administer everything that the state requires, that you require. That's my job as a local health administrator. I have powers of enforcement, powers of administration. As you can see, there's a list of the required capabilities of every public health department in the state of Oregon: assessment, epidemiology, emergency preparedness, communications, policy, leadership, health equity and cultural responsiveness, which goes back to your question about social disparities, and community partnership development. That's all things that we are required to do. And as part of that, communicable disease control, environmental public health, prevention of injuries and disease, and clinical preventive services. Those are our main functions. One of those major ones is communicable disease control. Luckily, we have Sherry Selber here, and our head nurse is in the audience tonight, and she's our communicable disease lead. And she can tell you it's a busy job. We have to recognize, identify, respond to all communicable disease outbreaks. We have to maintain a list of all the communicable diseases, conduct, receive, and analyze laboratory results, which we get dozens every day, provide the support necessary for individuals to recognize communicable disease. So we have to go to the hospitals and other providers, let them know what to look for. And we do community-based programs for the purpose of preventing communicable disease. So we do outreach clinics and education. And so here's an example of one right now that we're experiencing that's pretty big. You may have seen the article in the Daily Historian. We declared a syphilis outbreak here in Clatsop County because our case counts have gone much higher than we've expected or anticipated. From 2007 to 2013, we only had 2 reported cases during that 6 years. From then, just In 2016 alone, we had 8. In 2017, we expect to be more. So it's really a pretty serious problem.
What, do you know the demographic, the ages that this is appearing?
It's really kind of widespread, but it's really the 20 to 55 group. It's pretty wide. So,
Mike, I had a question concerning the syphilis outbreak. I know this poster is from like the 30s or something, right? Now it says here it's like 6 out of 10 cured because they did not wait too long. Now today, don't they, is there similar, if you wait too long, it's not as curable still? Or statistically, is syphilis basically completely curable at most stages until you know?
I'll let the doctor answer that question.
Just curious.
Well, not too long ago, probably at the turn of the century, the main reason that people were in mental hospitals was something called GPI, general paresis of the insane, which was tertiary syphilis. And the rate of that, of course, is 0, or very close to it. Once you really have established tertiary syphilis, it's a chronic disease. You can't do very much about it. So waiting too long, you can still treat early neurosyphilis with high doses of penicillin, and you can pretty much affect a cure. If it goes beyond that, it's not curable. It just destroys your nerves.
Right, so basically what we do now is we catch it earlier
Catch it earlier,
and treat it,
but the thing is that nobody is looking for it.
right?
And of course, the initial presentation of syphilis, the chancre, is painless. So, especially in women, if it's not caught, it could easily transfer to secondary syphilis, which looks a lot like ordinary rashes. It's called the great imitator. See, up until the 40s and probably even the 50s, syphilis was known as the great imitator. It looks like a lot of other things, and its early stages are kind of painless. And then when people start getting crazy, maybe somebody will catch on to neurosyphilis. I don't know how these cases are found. I really don't know. Maybe it would be interesting to know, because there's only 8 of them. We could find that out. But
So how we find them out is we get notified through what we call it, from whenever a hospital or provider takes a sample and it gets tested, it goes to the public health lab. They will have to, if it's a communicable disease on a big long list, it gets reported to the local county where it's found. So that we're responsible then to do the case investigation and follow-up. So that's how we get those.
secondary syphilis looks a lot like pityriasis rosea, which is a common illness in young adults. I mean, it's like, if you're not thinking about it, you're not going to see it, and you're not going to find it out. Pregnant women are universally tested now for syphilis. They have been for many, many years. So at least congenital syphilis is probably going to be prevented.
We have quite a problem with drug abuse in this county. Do you think this is related to that? High-risk behavior? Or?
We found there's a very strong causal link between meth use and other drugs with the syphilis cases. We've had some help from the state come down and do some work in trying to find these folks, and generally almost all the cases that I'm familiar with have had some drug use associated with it. You've already seen that one. One of the plans we're going to have in part of the intervention process is actually working with the jail to actually work with folks who are been arrested for and or have a known drug use in the past to get tested, because then we can start doing that prevention piece about knowing whether or not they have it, so we can treat them so it doesn't continue, and then start getting to the base of this, because otherwise it's really difficult to find these folks, to make sure, unless they go present at a hospital or a provider or something, have a blood test, it's really kind of difficult to find them. So this is how we're going to start doing this.
So you'll need a blood test to verify that they have it?
Correct.
And if you're going into the jail to do that, who pays for that? Is that
So-
part of our way we can support you guys? Or support all of us, I should say?
Actually, what we've done is we've applied for a special fund through the state. We're waiting to hear back, and that'll help pay for having some nursing time and some staff assistant time and some supplies to do the testing. So we'll be able to do a lot of that work with special funds from the state. So back to the question real quickly about what if there was no public health. If we had no public health nurses, we'd have no control of infectious diseases like H1N1, tuberculosis, Ebola, pertussis, measles, and that would equal to unnecessary illnesses and death. No disaster preparedness, provide input to interdisciplinary programs. We work with Tiffany Brown and OEM. We wouldn't be able to do that. No vaccination oversight. Polio, mumps, measles, diphtheria, many of the preventable diseases would run rampant because there wouldn't be anybody following the stuff and making sure they got their shots. Evaluate health trends and risk factors. We wouldn't be able to do that. We actually wouldn't be able to do the syphilis outbreak investigation that we're going to be doing without public health nurses. We just have to continue. There'd be no environmental health inspectors, so we'd have unsafe and unsanitary restaurant and food suppliers. That's probably not what everybody wants. Have no health promotion specialists, no fluoridation of drinking water. More dental caries would be the cause of the effect of that, and no health officer. As we discussed earlier, when tobacco was found to be the cause of lung cancer in 1964 report that's landmark, that was no more cancer and heart disease would be from smoking because that may never have happened. And I think this is, this kind of summarizes the best. Since 1900, the average lifespan of persons in the United States has lengthened by greater than 30 years, and 25 of those years of this gain are attributed to advances in public health alone.
Mr. Chair, I have one more, if you indulge me. So disaster preparedness. I'm going to take a course for $99 down from the Nehalem Bay Emergency Volunteer Corps on how to do kind of ad hoc sanitary planning. Plastic buckets and shovels are involved. So I wonder if we think about doing that sort of thing, because what's clear is that in a disaster, no matter how much we prepare, first responders are going to be overwhelmed. So how do individual people be better able to respond? And that's one of the things I'm thinking about when we talk about our TV channel, that if we put up information like that, it's a way to share information. And I would hope that when we do have our cable TV channel operative, that public health matters are raised. Mm-hmm. There's a TV show in your future, but thirdly, I would also, well, you may not want to, but
why not?
Might not be a good thing, But the third thing is, I think that we as a board, as the local health, should have you reporting to us on a regular basis so that we're kept better informed, so that we're a better conduit back and forth with our community liaisons, and to know what your world is like and how we can support you but more effectively.
Yeah, I think after speaking to Cameron a while ago, I think what we want to do is have it by topic and bring it to you maybe every other month so you can know what we're up to, and maybe this is a perfect timing for this lead-in because we're going to meet with you next week. I am, and some of our others are going to meet with you about goal setting. So this is a great preview about your responsibilities as Board of Health and Board of Commissioners, and what some of the things I could bring all of our projects to you so you can see what we're up to.
Wonderful, thank you.
Sure. Any questions for me?
Excellent.
Mr. Chair, if I could, I'd like to thank Mike and Dr. Duncan, but I also want to recognize, I think most, if not all, of our public health department is here tonight. So could you folks that work for us stand up? You do great work. It's a team effort, and we couldn't do it without all of you. They actually came along to keep an eye on Mike, but.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
Thank you for a wonderful presentation. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, you guys.
Thank you. Thank you all.
All right, we're going to move on now to business from the public. This is an opportunity for anyone to give a 3-minute presentation about any item on the agenda except public hearings, or any topic of county concern that is not on the agenda. People wishing to speak during business from the public must fill out and sign a public comment sign-in card. I've got 3 guests tonight. Our first guest is Dan Gaffney. I hope I got that right. Come on up, Dan, and state your name and address for the record. Welcome.
Dan Gaffney.
When I go like this, you got about 15 seconds left.
Okay, sounds good. I'm Dan Gaffney. I'm 92702 Fern Hill Road out in Astoria. And I came to thank you I'm looking forward to heading up the preschool feasibility grant that the county is applied for and received from the U.S. Department of Ed. What I've handed out to you is a brief abstract that we submitted at the time of the application that gives you a little bit of an overview of what it is that we're pursuing. And then on the second page, second piece of paper is the hypothesis that if in a perfect world we achieve what we're after, we're going to save the world and help the health department do their job as well. So the main thing I wanted to do is come and thank you publicly and let you know that I look forward to a future meeting when I can go through a little bit more detail about what it is that we have in store. So.
Yeah, I believe Dan is on the agenda for a more formal presentation on this project, I think March 5th. I think our first
great,
meeting in March.
because I was just going to kind of allow this to kind of turn in more of a presentation. But I do, you're welcome. And we look forward to a further presentation.
Great, great.
Thank you.
I'm very happy to put a face with your name now because I've certainly heard a lot about you, and especially from my daughter.
Yeah,
Now,
well,
all
We
favorable.
have a Mutual Admiration Society.
Wonderful.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan, for that quick report. Our next guest is Kathy Merritt. Come on up, Kathy. Welcome back.
For those of you I met last time, hi, I'm Kathy Merritt. I'm 504 Northwest 8 Warrenton, and I'm the very part-time librarian at North Coast Youth Correctional Facility. And I saw in your packet that beautiful letter. I'm hoping you'll approve that tonight. And I find that following Dr. Duncan and Mr. Gaffney is perfect. Dr. Duncan talked about health. The young men out at the Youth Correctional Facility get amazing health care, which they need. You talk about preschool. A lot of these young men come from situations that were horrible. The staff out there at North Coast worked their amazing powers with those young men. We had a young man on Tuesday night, I went to volunteer, and I could see on Monday during library, because he helps me, that things had been building for this kid, and Tuesday night during dinner, whatever, he flipped out. But when they finally got him calm by just telling him, stop, he was able to pull it back together, and he'd never been able to do that. They'd called code to get more help. He was able to stop. And so it's such an amazing place out there for these young men. And thank you again so much if you approve the letter tonight. I'm going to the Ways and Means Committee in Tillamook on March 3rd, hopefully to also present our side. I'm a firm believer in not just complaining, but I'm hoping that the goal will be to make cuts broad instead of axing one program. So I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next guest tonight is Amanda Robinson. Amanda?
Hello, my name is Amanda Robinson. I live at 2975 Grand Avenue here in Astoria. I also work at Oregon Youth Authority, and I'm happy to follow up after Kathy Merritt. So I'm just going to read something that I wrote up here, and I'm also hoping that you guys are going to sign that letter tonight. I'm also going to the Ways and Means Committee meeting with Kathy, and I would love to take that letter down there, and we're going to speak to the Ways and Means Committee. Once again, we're hoping to get some more folks to go down there with us and just kind of share some more information about our facility and how important it would be to keep it open. So I'm an executive support specialist at the Oregon Youth Authority in Warrenton. So I moved here in the fall of 2015 to begin a new career with the Oregon Youth Authority. Prior to this position, I had never worked in a youth correctional facility before, and it's truly been an eye-opening experience for me. I don't directly work with the youth, but I've learned so much about all the great work the staff do with the youth of the facility. I've seen a passion in the staff and the volunteers at the North Coast facility that is truly impressive. The positive financial impact that both the facility and the staff make to the local community is something that I know is very important to Clatsop County. And I've got to know many of these staff members fairly well since I have been working here. So if the facility shuts down, not only would that impact, monetarily the county, but we're going to be losing all these amazing families because they're going to have to move. So it's not just, 50 staff members, it's the staff members and their significant others and their kids. And I've gotten to know a lot of these people, and there's just a lot of amazing people there. And I've been talking to them, and their families are going to have to move. So I kind of see a different aspect working with more of the staff at the facility, and it would just be very sad to have this facility closed down. So I wanted to share that, and I hope that you guys sign that letter. Thank you.
Oh, I read that. All right, now, that concludes our business from the public, and now I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent calendar.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion, a second, to approve the consent calendar. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We're going to move on to the business agenda now. First up, we have the letter to express opposition to closing the North Coast Youth Correctional Facility. That's fairly straightforward. Page 95. Looking for a motion to unanimously approve this letter.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion, a second, to approve the letter. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Our next item is the resolution and order supporting the 2017 transportation package. There's a lot going on here. County Manager Moore, maybe you could point out a couple items, or if any other commissioners have some questions. It's important, this transportation package, particularly for the coastal counties.
Yeah, this is actually consistent with positions that the Association of Oregon Counties have taken in support of a transportation package. Frankly, I think there probably aren't a whole lot more people in favor of a transportation package. At our last meeting, we had a little bit of discussion about this, and you had indicated a desire to formalize your support. So just drafted this resolution based on a model that was provided to us by AOC and present that for your consideration.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Sure.
When I was looking over this, it anticipates a short, well, they say, it's the dollar amounts that I wonder about. Oregon's counties face annual shortfalls of $505 million.
Yeah.
And then we have, under just Clatsop County, $500 million.
Yeah, ours actually should be 5 million.
5 million?
Clatsop
Okay,
County.
so,
Oh, good.
Typo there that we need to correct?
Yep,
So staff's aware of that. Thank you for pointing that out, Commissioner.
thank you.
thank you.
Is there anything else in there we need to?
I also have another question, if I may. Just as I was thinking over this, because I've heard Senator Betsy Johnson talk about the transportation package on numerous occasions, and I think we need to have that go. I was wondering about, we just got the newsletter from Kevin Leahy with the Cedar, and that, he's in touch with the Chamber of Commerce. He writes an article in the Business Journal, and all these different connections that he has and his group has with the business community. And can we enlist their help in getting support for this transportation bill? Because I know that Betsy has expressed concern that it's going to be a difficult one to pass.
Yeah.
So I would ask that we could get all the powers that we have in the county to help facilitate this passage.
Seems like a good idea to me, since the businesses will benefit.
So.
So, Mr. Chair, I'm your liaison to Cedar. I'm happy to carry something forward.
Yeah. You bet, carry this resolution, and I'm sure that you'll be very eloquent in your report.
I think they'll be willing. I don't think much eloquence will be required. I think it's a huge problem.
Yeah, and just for the benefit of Commissioner Sullivan, if you didn't know, the county does provide Cedar with about $70,000 a year in funding.
Yes.
So Kevin may not agree with this, but I look at him as my economic development guy.
There you go.
We do work pretty closely.
I
with
would agree with you on that, Cam. And the other thing too is the meeting that I attended with the Portland Port of Authority. If I'm saying that right.
Port of Portland.
Port of Portland, didn't sound right. They were talking, it's not, we have to be mindful that it's not just what Clatsop County needs, although that's our concern, but it's a lot of this package is going to involve the metro area, because that's the hub that everything in the state goes through. And if we can't get that, some of that infrastructure taken care of, it's going to hurt in the entire state. So we need to, look out for ourselves, but also look out for everybody as a whole. And I think that may be part of the job of convincing the business community and whatnot that that's what we need to do. Thank you.
Well, very good. Then we'll look for a motion to approve this resolution.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve a resolution in the matter of supporting the 2017 transportation funding package. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Our next item is the item that I had added. This is an area that Commissioner Clement and I have been working collaboratively over the last 2 years, 3 years, longer, as long as we've been around. And I have here, I've been in conversation with a fishing group that's led by Kerry Johnson, a longtime Clatsop County citizen and gill netter, and his group has sent me this letter. And in a conversation with Commissioner Clement, we would like to submit this letter to staff and council and have it brought forward to us at the next meeting. So if it's okay with if I can get consensus from this board to direct staff to take a look at this. And if you have any comments concerning this letter, please direct those to me or Mr. Moore. And we'd like to bring this letter back for a vote in 2 weeks.
So, Mr. Chair, if I may, I used to head up a small state agency in Oregon, and there was a board over it. And what the governor's staffers always told me was that the members of any commission served at the pleasure of the governor.
Mm-hmm.
So lots of good statutory references here, but the way it was told to me, and this was my personal experience, that members of a commission may be given the choice of continuing to serve on a commission or approving differing from what the governor wants to have happen. So I do think it's important to support local fishing and all of that. My only concern is that if we try and tell the governor what her duty is and what her prerogatives are, that may work against somehow the people on the Border Commission, and I don't know how to investigate that as a possibility.
I hear that, and I think that's a valid concern. What I see here is that on February 5th, she said one thing, and on February 9th, she said something else. And, it's very frustrating to me, and it's frustrating to a lot of folks that have a stake in this, not only an economic stake, but a cultural stake. And I think that we need to hold the governor accountable for the things that she says. And I really appreciate any input and your thoughtful consideration on this, and I look forward to seeing what, the recommendation from staff and council also.
It's also our duty it's the state's duty from different counties to inform her of things she's not informed of.
So your supposition is that somehow she's misled or not informed or something like that? Well,
I mean, not necessarily, but we're allowed to voice our opinion about that to her without stepping on her feet or questioning her governing ability. We're just informing her of our position and what we have questions about also.
I agree with that point. I think we have valid concerns. My only consideration is how do we express those concerns in a way that results in benefit to the people who are doing the fishing that we're trying to support.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why we're having this conversation, and I really appreciate that. I look forward to some of the input from this board to staff.
And I think what we are asking is for that same respect towards us. So if we're going to have that respect for her and her authority, then she has to sort of do her due diligence to find out what is happening also. So if we could have council help us out with that, it'd be great.
One thing that I wanted to address about this issue is that I've been, I'm a fourth generation Norwegian fishing, last commercial fisherman in my family. There's a thing called the Columbia Compact. It's 100 years old. And this is one of the, I think, if I'm trying to, look in to see what's motivating behind this, and I think that, what's going on in Washington and what could happen with the compact, this could kind of blow up into a real major battle between two states. We obviously don't want to see that. Washington's put its feet down, and it seems like we're kind of like drifting, and the gill netters are being kind of left out in the cold here. And so I think that's part of this. And I don't know how this is going to shake out over the next few years, but I think it's important that we, make our voice heard in a way that, as you say, truly benefits, our values and the economy here of the fishermen. So that being said,
Good.
I think everybody here I'm getting a shake of a head here, and so I think staff has some direction on this letter, and we'll definitely look forward to recommendations and your thoughtful comments.
I have a question. I'm afraid if I don't ask it now, I won't remember next time. So Washington does not allow any gill netting? Is that correct? Or is it just on the Columbia?
They do, but they want
No.
to
But, yeah, they want to
put it in the side channels.
severely limit it, and I believe that will happen, and it will be only in the terminals.
So they don't want to allow it north, in their northern areas of waters?
There's no,
It doesn't distinguish that, only northern areas,
the tribes are the only ones that fish above the dam.
correct.
And basically, the tribes are going to, basically what Washington wants is the only gill net in the water is going to belong to treaty tribes.
It's going to be a set net, and it will be up and down the Columbia and Washington side, that's all you'll see. And that will probably happen, because from what I hear is that there's not a lot of, that they don't have a lot of representation on their Washington Board of Fish and Game, like we do. We're fortunate to have a couple of people that are going to bat for the little communities that happen to have 150 gill netters who are making a living this way, and that are analyzing the science of the gill net instead of sort of a plan that was put out by Governor Kitzhaber that was non-science based, and now it's it's unraveling and it's derailing, and they're finding out that this really isn't really what's happening. So, I think we had, at least that's how I'm feeling, in Oregon had some people on that ODFW board to say, hey, that's not okay. And if that, it's important, I think, when you have an opposition to something, you can't just say, well, hey, that's not okay, and then have nothing really to say of your ideas, what you can do differently. And we happen to have that. We said, this is not, or they said, this is not okay. What about this? And they said, oh, that looks good, and then they approved that. And that's when kind of all hell is breaking loose, so.
I guess what I'm curious about is the entire state of Washington, so there's no gill netting? They don't want any gill netting anywhere, even north?
Just tribes.
Correct,
Treaty tribes.
only natives.
See, the thing is, if you look at a map of like down here on the lower river, the boundary between Washington and Oregon is on that second bridge. A lot of people don't realize that. And so basically, the Washington boundary basically hugs the north shore. And then 100 years ago, they came up with the Columbia Compact, where Washington and Oregon would work together to manage cooperatively the lower river. And it was quite contentious period. With the elimination of the fish wheels and the seine nets. It's an amazing history. But right now, that's all kind of coming up again, and we're looking at a battle that's just going to be similar to the one that happened in the early 70s.
But we haven't been fishing out there for at least 15 years, really. We really haven't been. So, it's not like, oh, there's all these sophisticated, and who's going to get him, and what if we run it? I mean, it's really not like that. We're in even with this plan, this new revised plan, we're at a very limited days, very small. It would really not be very difficult to manage, even if Washington is fishing none. And there's really, it's not as much contention as there would be back then when the fish are jumping out of the sea and everyone's trying to fight for them. So that's yes, it's coming back, and yes, I see the issues, and we have to tread lightly. I get all of that, but it's a little bit different of an animal now.
Yeah.
So the state of Washington, they have, right now,
Probably going to completely eliminate it.
on the Columbia, but you're saying it's
Well,
statewide?
We don't really fish anywhere else but the Columbia.
But I'm talking
Sorry,
about
people.
Washington.
Washington fishermen don't really fish anywhere else but the Columbia.
There's a tribal fishery, there's quite a large tribal fishery in Puget Sound.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
that's,
Yeah, and I believe
And the Chehalis,
but that's all tribal, no?
there's no commercial gill netting anymore. There's some seining.
nobody's, there's a little bit of commercial gill netting in Puget Sound, but they're trying to take it all away, and I think they're going to do it.
Okay.
So I think that there's, as what I'm hearing through the grapevine, is there's no hope for Washington fishermen right now. And they have about, thousands of gill netters, thousands, lots of people.
Is there a pushback there?
Yes, but it's a pushback from the people,
Right.
but that doesn't go very far. You have to have somebody, as we all know, you have to have somebody on the end, and we do.
On the board.
We've got somebody on the board that's helping us out,
Okay.
representing us, telling the facts, telling our story, if you will.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to commissioners' reports. Commissioner Thompson?
So I've been going to Salem to testify, and I've been talking about Clatsop County roads, how we need an alternative to 101 because our road gets blocked. Today, I was going up to the Job and Career Fair. It was, instead of a 1-hour trip that it would usually be, it was a 2-hour trip, going down south 101 over to 53, up and around. So I said, we need an alternative to 101. I said, they need to use better planning data. When they're planning emergency matters for Clatsop County, they base it on a population of 37,000. When we know that Seaside alone has an extra 100,000 on 4th of July and extra 40,000 every weekend in the summertime. So use better data to plan for us accurately and support community volunteers because first responders are going to be overwhelmed. So how do community volunteers engage with each other? So being in the Capitol building, testifying before committees, I have the opportunity to say, my name is Leanne Thompson. I'm a Clatsop County Commissioner, and I'm here to speak to you about so that we are present in the Capitol with having our needs be known. Representative Evans is chair of the House Committee on Veterans and Emergency Preparedness. Our own Representative Deborah Boone is the vice chair of that committee. He has proposed a bill to establish something that's like a lend-lease program so that operating through state auspices to buy equipment more cheaply, they would house it. Looking at the proposal right now is $1 million a year through either gleaning unspent funds or issuing 11Q bonds. So they've got a financing plan so that we would have equipment here to be able to do emergency preparedness. So I testified in favor of that, supported OEM State Manager Andrew Phelps' budget, again, talking about Clatsop County and what we need. So doing that kind of activities. Today was the Job and Career Fair. It was wonderful. Sophomores and juniors from all over Clatsop County high schools were there, and an additional at least 130 persons, adults from the community, were there this year. So that was another Cedar activity. Mass timber. On March 1st, there's a discussion group, a roundtable to talk about using mass timber to build affordable housing. So that's in Portland. So I'm going to go to that. The Earthquake Engineers Research Institute is having a conference in Portland the next week in March, and I've been asked to moderate a panel that includes Tom Horning from Seaside, talking about living in a tsunami zone. So I hope I'll be able to bring back some information about that. We all have information tonight from the Oregon Forest Resources Institute. Their conference this year is all about mass timber. This is that reverse trade mission. So that would be important to go to attend. It's a spendy little adventure. On the other hand, it could help reinvent the economy, not only of Clatsop County, but the rest of Oregon, because they've got companies coming here from the United Kingdom, from Germany, from Australia, and from Chile to look at building mass timber production facilities in Oregon. So we're really on the cusp, I think, of some big changes. So that's enough for tonight.
All right, thank you for that report, Commissioner Sullivan.
Thank you. First of all, I don't think I didn't say specifically, but thank you, Tom Duncan, for all the years of service to this county, and I appreciate you and coming and presenting in front of us, and I really look forward to hearing more updates from the public health in the time to come. And Leanne, thank you. It reminded me of something else I was thinking of about the housing is we have a planning commission, and I'm wondering if they're looking at, I know the city of Astoria is on housing because it's reaching crisis proportion, and I shouldn't say anything because I missed the meeting today, and I apologize for that, but I guess I'll have to talk to Cam and Scott afterwards about what topics the planning commission is looking at, and I know my sister tonight is talking to people about cooperative housing and seeing if there's any stakeholders that'd be interested in exploring cooperative housing here in the area. With her experience with the Scorcher, which is a workers-owned business, the co-op, the grocery in town, and the fact that I lived in cooperative housing in college, and so did my sister. I think it's something that would be, I'd like to see happen here with these big old houses. And I'm wondering maybe if the Planning Commission might not be able to look into something like that. It's creative ways to address some of these housing issues, because I don't know how we're going to grow if we don't have some place for employees to live. So the other thing is the FTLAC meeting was canceled. It was supposed to be on Friday. It was canceled again. So January's meeting and this meeting was canceled. But I am continuing to do as much research as I can. Teresa very kindly copied off 2016's minutes for the FTLAC meeting so that I can do some research into that. I've reached out to Gil Rydell on giving him about 4 or 5 policy questions that I kind of want to look to, and I expect to make reports each time at the meeting here. So I appreciate that. And then one more thing tonight. Some of you probably already know, but Senator Wyden is coming to town for a town hall meeting this Friday, the 24th. It's going to be at 11:30 a.m. at the high school. And the parking is limited. I think they're going to set up a shuttle. And I think the seniors have been invited to be there, but there's certainly the public is invited, and invite all of you to be there. I have been asked to introduce Senator Wyden tomorrow, so that's a great honor, and so I'll be there, but I hope to see the rest of you there too. So thank you very much.
Commissioner Nebaker.
I just wanted to agree with Commissioner Sullivan. One of my children also lived in cooperative housing in college, and it was very successful. It enabled him and us to incur far less debt. It was amazing how efficient that was and economically viable, and he had a very good experience, good living experience, food, all of that. It was just amazing how well that worked compared to paying for a dorm or an apartment. he did it in his later years of college, but yeah, compared to the cost of a dorm, it was just, no question, way better.
Plus, you have a sense of community.
Yes.
And so I was just wondering, you know, what's out there and how can we translate it into more housing, so.
I remember thinking when he was in that, I thought, this is a good model. We need to look at this. And this was many years ago. I was thinking of it for seniors, but it could be
I
applied
think
to
that could work
anyone.
too. Golden Girls was a success for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, that's right. I have nothing to report.
I kind of said my report earlier when we were discussing that, and I just was reminded by something when you were speaking about housing. Perhaps maybe 6 months ago, I can't remember, time is like flying for me, but we approved a road at the North Coast Business Park for somebody that was going to develop
Martin, I got
some
it.
sort of housing for employees.
Oh, I don't know about that. The one out by the sheriff's department?
North Coast Business Park
Yeah.
Road, look, I can't remember. Do you
100-foot
remember that,
easement?
Heather? Yeah.
Yeah.
And in that, and I remember asking about it, was that one of the reasons for that road, and I remember asking, was to develop employee or working housing. So I don't know where that is or whatever happened to that, and if the road is going up or what, but we did approve something and some sort of structure. So I'm just saying, you know, it's where I don't know exactly who it was, but it's worth looking at. Maybe there's some sort of way that you can convince these people of this model, or, you know, there's opportunities of places to be, especially now that we have Walmart and other places that need to have employee housing.
Absolutely.
Okay, I got a few things. We had our Oregon Coastal Zone Management Association meeting of our legislative committee today, and we had a quorum, and we passed, as I've mentioned in the past, we've moved into a policy action on legislative items, and I sent around a flyer of some of the bills that the board has put together that are of interest to the coastal counties, and each commissioner from each participating coastal county has brought these together with the help of staff, and we basically approved unanimously supporting every one of these bills, except we tabled House Bill 2708, which is an LCDC land use planning goal guidelines and amendment, because it's super controversial, and we felt that this is an item that I don't think I could have, we just tabled it and requested more information from staff, and I would like to ask some of the commissioners if they get a chance to look in this bill and see if this is something that Clatsop County would support.
The one that was tabled, you mean?
Yeah, House Bill 2708. I think it's gonna, we'll probably, at the next meeting of the legislative committee, we may have a further discussion on this, but if anyone has any concerns about Oregon Coastal Zone Management Association speaking to these bills, please get in touch with me. To me, they're very straightforward. In fact, a number of them are items that we have already, as a board, have supported, for instance, funds for the U.S. Coast Guard helicopter facility in Newport. Before some of the commissioners were here, they were considering taking that away, and it's super important to have that facility down there. So if you have any concerns about any of these, definitely get in touch with me. There's going to be...
Mr. Chair, could I just interrupt you?
Go right ahead.
So I go to the AOC and there's a legislative committee hearing, and there's just a boatload of bills.
There are.
I mean,
Hundreds.
how do we as a board want to handle our approach to those? I have,
If any of the commissioners have a bill that you think that we need to speak to, by all means, Leanne,
Okay.
you know, bring it to this board. Which leads to my other point. We are going to have our May membership meeting in Salem of the entire Oregon Coastal Zone Management Association board members, and obviously commissioners from the counties are invited too. And it's my goal is to strengthen this organization over the next few years and to and give us more of a voice of our coastal concerns. For instance, the transportation bill is a big part of that. If you look also, there were some other items. We talked about the Dogami, Tsunami, Indonesia, and zone lines update. This is another controversial thing that we're going to probably I'll be bringing to the board. Dogami has issued some new lines for tsunami. This could affect insurance for folks, like the flood relief issue that we've been working on for 4 years. And so that's another thing that we talked about. And other than that, if you see any bills in the hopper or you think that we need to weigh in on, either as a coastal zone or as individually as a board, I think, great, let's bring it on. And I wanted to add on with you, AOC is a great resource for coming up with the bills that are really, they have got a number of different emails that I think have been sent to all of us. And so if something that you see grabs you and you want to really get Clatsop County to testify, we can do that.
So Mr. Chair, a couple things. That Senate Bill 109 that I testified in favor of was before the Senate Business and Transportation Committee, was to establish a task force, including insurance companies and, just a whole bunch of state planning folks and a county commissioner and an emergency manager to look at how do we help individuals become more resilient so that they can make claims on their individual insurance companies and still not put those insurance companies out of business. So it's another way to look at emergency preparedness. So that's a kind of thing I'm working on. The other thing, we had a couple of people testifying, so I apologize for interrupting your presentation. On Friday, the 3rd of March, 6 to 8 p.m., Tillamook, the Port of Tillamook Bay, the officers' mess building between 6 and 8 p.m. That's where there's going to be a Joint Ways and Means Committee public hearing. We, as electeds, can have a 2-minute courtesy opportunity to speak if we want that. I didn't know if you were going to announce that, and I had forgotten to.
Kathy Merritt announced it earlier in our meeting.
Well, but we as electeds get our 2 minutes. It isn't like we have to rush the door. Because we are elected public officials, we have the opportunity to speak and be heard. So if there are things that we want to talk about, so March 3rd, 6 to 8, Tillamook Bay, the officers' mess at the Port of Tillamook Bay.
Great.
The Ways and Means Committee.
In addressing the bills, do you remember when we used to have conference calls with Betsy Johnson, Deborah Boone? And those all went away. And they helped us
kind of find out what the bills that she was kind
Yeah,
of,
because so many of them are never going to get very far anyway.
Right.
There's no reason to just read through every one of them.
Right.
Because they're all going to get, scrutinized and most will be weeded out.
yeah, by all means, I mean, it would be nice that we, as this session moves on, we should probably reach out to the senator.
So
and
perhaps we could do that again?
we could probably put something like that together where we could find out where Betsy's, what she's got earmarked as a priority.
OMIC,
Yeah.
she has a $10 million ask for her OMIC center, that metal transformational entity that's going to happen in Scappoose, for sure.
Okay, that's all I have. County Manager?
3 things quickly. I guess these would all probably fall into the category of reminders. We do have Charter Review Committee tomorrow in this room at 4 p.m. They are interested in hearing any thoughts commissioners have regarding the charter, and set aside time at the beginning of that meeting for commissioners. And if you have any written comments, please send them to me and we'll get those to the committee. So the committee is off and running, and hopefully be able to complete their work over the next few months. Second thing would be goal setting. I know we talked about that, but I think everybody has that on their calendar. So March 2nd, 8 a.m. to noon. I think it was maybe Commissioner Sullivan that suggested that maybe we do this in room 430, the large conference room over at 800 Exchange. It's a little bit more comfortable than this environment. So, you know, if there's no objections to that, we would probably go ahead and hold the goal setting over there. But again, want to remind you of that. And then the third thing, and again, we're a little ways off from some of these meetings, but also just encourage you to consult your budget calendar and plan accordingly. We have, you know, still a ways out, but we have budget committee meetings coming up, and I think that's important that we have good attendance from the commissioners. So.
Great. Thank you, County Manager. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.